Good morning, everyone. Here we are. It's Monday at 11. Aloha, everyone. We are at the neutral zone. Welcome to our show. Well, look at this. In front of me, I see a man who has been here on this side of the microphone. Bodhi B., welcome to the show. Aloha.
Aloha. Hi, Jason.
Good morning.
Good
Perfect.
morning.
You came just at the right time. You know, here at Maui Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com, 88.5 FM, KAKU, the voice of Maui, simulcast on Akaku Maui Community TV. This marks 6 years that I've been doing this show every week. But to me, it's like, wow, 6 years.
That's impressive, Jason.
I don't know how long it is in dog years, but it's been a while. And
I don't know any dogs that could actually do this.
It's pretty rough. I got it. So you were on here doing your show for
Couple of years.
And
Death tracks.
Right. Well, yeah, there's a theme I've heard before. Doorway into Light. Name chosen because
it shows itself. And people think I'm talking about after you die, that's where you go. It is, and it's more than that. It's in terms of how we need to grow our minds in deeper and brighter ways. And there are so many opportunities in our lifetime where we step through doorways into a brighter place.
I see. But Doorway into Light is, how do you describe?
Doorway into Light is a 501c3 educational and charitable organization that has been providing educational programs in the state of Hawaii and other places in the world, but mostly in the state of Hawaii, especially on Maui, since 2006. In 2012, we started the only nonprofit funeral home in the state of Hawaii and continue to operate Hawaii's only nonprofit funeral home here in Haiku. And our educational programs have expanded to online trainings, and every year we have international death doula training on Maui for people from around the world come to. And now we're doing a monthly event in Paia at Heritage Hall on the third Tuesday of every month. It's called our Dead-Education series. And in fact, tomorrow night is the second one, and we're having a Earth Grief dance. And I know a lot of people are feeling what's happening in the world, and it's hurting. If you're a sensitive person, how could you not be grieving and hurting about what's playing on out there? And what I see now, having led groups grieving together, how powerful and important it is for people to come together and honor the way they're hurting and grieving. And I think grieving and love are really almost the same thing. Certainly twin sisters. So that's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in Paia at Heritage Hall, which is 401 Baldwin Avenue. I mean, I could go on in terms of what we're doing, but I think I touched on. And then in front. We do something else. We run Doorway into Light has a storefront that's open one day a week, every Saturday from 11 to 3, and the storefront's called the Death Store. And basically, it's a welcoming place to see what we're doing and have conversation and see how we can support you. And again, being a nonprofit, we're not selling. We're in service. So come by on a Saturday from 11 to 3 on West Quiaha. And come see what we're doing. We're actually transforming what a funeral home is and transforming it into what it really ought to be, which is community sacred service and not money, not about making money.
Well, you know, I thought that was a very good, full introduction. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks for asking.
Well, you know, sometimes people see that I just get on here and I just start to go. And
you have a lot to go.
Well, thank you.
You have good go, and you have a message that I've always felt was important for the community to hear, regardless of whether that was one person or 50,000 people. I thought you had a message that was one of the voices that wanted and needed to be heard in this community. I mean, even beyond this show, you've been a voice for the people for as long as I've known you, which is, I don't know, 30-something years. So
isn't that something?
I bow to you. So if anybody
thank you.
thinks you take up too much airspace, that's fine. People can think whatever they think. Everybody does.
Well, I always.
I'm sorry. I'll turn.
That's all right. That's okay. I sometimes wonder, when I do these shows, like you said, whether it's 1 or 50,000 viewers, it's always, we're gonna have to give Apple some new sounds, right?
I keep thinking I'll change it, but it doesn't seem to rise to the top of my list. But thanks. But you're not just a blowhard here. For one thing, you have an important message, and then it was really big for you to get me to come in. You want to bring other voices in, and I respect that too. Sorry.
Well, that's all right. You can just put them on numb.
Yeah, I will.
It's all right.
But I'm with you.
I do want to bring other voices in. I've been bringing other voices for a lot of years now. Believe it or not, I've been doing shows for 30 years now.
I believe it.
It hasn't been a self-supporting effort. It's been an effort, and I think that really got me last election season when I was in a primary with 7 people, and out of 7 people, I came in 7th, and I thought, well, that really is something. I wonder what that says. And yet, when people talk to me, I feel like I have a lot of support from people over these years, but it hasn't translated. So I'm actually going through a doorway into light moment myself, At the end of this month, I am going to take a break for at least a couple of months. I'm having physical surgery and going to see what comes out next. For example, I was going to think about, I wonder how many people know that I can sing. Well, I've done this thing about this Maui Arts and Music Association to promote art and music and culture and educate people about environmental solutions that we can implement on Maui and be a global example and send people home with more than a suntan. Well, I've said that for 30 years. Well, after this time, and what do I say? I'm not really sure. I've been promoting it, and I still think it's a really appropriate idea. When Shep Gordon 30 years ago, I don't know if all you viewers, you probably know Shep Gordon, right? Shep Gordon is, I think he still is, Alice Cooper's manager, among other people he's managed and
Don't know.
tour with. And he said to me, good idea, but he was when he was with Sharon Stone years ago. He said, good idea, but it's not my idea. Good luck with it. Here we are, 30 years later, I've been bringing it out, and it hasn't gotten people around who want to work, at least with me.
I imagine that could feel lonely. Or that you're too, I have had that experience for years, maybe because I was kind of on the front end of some of the things I was doing and hoping people would jump on board with me. And you never know. First of all, you never know what's happening on so many other levels. And I have had so much respect for you because I have an awareness of, or at least some of the things you've been moving and like you've kind of been holding up what I picture as like you're one of the tent poles of the community, and that you've been holding up a specific tent pole that is a certain, let's say, ray or field of focus, and but that can be lonely. that could be lonely. And that's one part of it. And it's just like, well, what are you going to do? This is what you're supposed to do until you get told differently, that by Great Spirit itself, that you need a break. And you've been told you need a break. And good for you. Good for you for honoring that you need that sometimes you come back with more inspiration to do whatever just by changing the pattern.
Yeah. Well, and that's
and the other side of it is, and this is what I also learned. I'm sorry I butted in there, but you don't know how many people you are touching that you just don't know about, and how your energetic itself is affecting the whole. In the things that you write, in the things that you say, in the things that you do, in the things that you promote, you just don't know somebody will come to me and say, you know what you said to me 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and I'm going, oh no, what did I say? And I didn't remember saying it, but it was like it had an effect. Just like you smile at the person in the supermarket or in the market, and you smile at that person, and you recognize that that's not just a cashier, that's a fellow human, and that person recognizes that you saw a fellow human and didn't just see a cashier, and then and that has an effect on that person usually for the rest of their day at least. So, we don't realize how much of an effect we do have.
I had a situation like that happen with you more than once, but I was talking to Harry Newman from Philadelphia, and he said to me,
is he still alive?
Yeah. He said to me,
did he get well?
I'm praying. Well,
okay.
When I get off the show today, I'm going to call him.
I want to know the answer myself. I'm going to write his name down now.
Okay. Well, he'll get 2 calls. He'll say, why? When I was speaking to him, he said, Jason, you changed my life. I said, what did I do? You told me about Bodhi. Yeah. So I hear you. He's a wonderful
guy. I bow to that.
Yeah. When I look at our audience, I don't see our audience because they're not really showing their faces. But like you say, they could be out there in many forms. I remember getting a call from Pakistan from a pilot who left our country because he was being plagued. He knew by the type of planes that flew into the World Trade Center and all that those pilots couldn't fly that plane. There was no way that they could have been flying that plane. And 9/11 pilots, they created this thing. It actually had me pulled off the air because I aired that show with him on YouTube, and they said, well, you can't do that. I've had that happen a couple of times where, I pulled up something that I shouldn't be pulling up.
You should get an award for it. Once you get 2 of those, you should get an award.
Well,
hey, I sat on that side of the desk, as you said. I had a radio show, and when I had a radio show, there weren't even cameras in the room. So of course, I had absolutely zero idea whether anybody was out there, and no way to track it, right? And it didn't matter to me. And then I was glad I got to the place. It didn't matter to me. I came in here. I like doing it. And then somebody would say, "Hey, I heard you on the radio." I'm like, "What?"
How dare you?
No, not how dare you, but somebody out there heard this show.
I know. Isn't that funny? I know. But then I realized, I sort of thought, well, it isn't while it's live that's so important. I have all these shows, hundreds and hundreds of shows. Through the years, I've done like 1,000 shows. I remember when Harmonic Convergence, and I videotaped the whole process here. All that stuff is sitting up there. You can see a lot of history.
I think the live stuff is the most precious stuff. Like, that's one of the reasons I think sports events are watching a sporting event, because you see it in real time, right? You can watch the news, hours later, but the sports game, unless you do want to watch the replay or the thing after, you can look up the score anyway. It's like when you're watching it live, nobody knows what the score is at the end of the game. And and it's just like this. I don't know, it's not pre-rehearsed, edited, or as far as I know. But what I wanted to ask you was, in anticipating that today I was coming on the show, did you have any kind of ideas about where you wanted to explore or ask or?
I think the answer is yes. I've had ideas, but the reason that I originally thought to have you on the show is I sit back and do a little meditation, and want to see who I want on the show at any time, and up you came. That's how you ended up here, because you had written a letter that ended up in the Maui News.
I think I've written about 50 letters.
Well, this one was about alternative housing solutions
for the homeless.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk a little about that. Great. Because it's like after going to homelessness meetings for 3-4 years and feeling like, what is this? And commissions and all kinds of great things, I never felt they hit the mark. There are a few people.
I think a lot of people feel exactly what you just said.
Well, and so that's
from where my end of the story is. We're building a fund now. We first started a fund for Lahaina families who had family members die in the fire. Yeah. And we raised, I forget what it was, $60,000, and spent a good portion of it helping Lahaina families who'd had somebody die. And now that we're not being called upon for that, we're moving the services towards homeless people. And now actually we're actively, everybody can donate to that so no homeless people should be cared for when they die here, right? And
you have any web addresses you'd like to?
Well, the doorwayintolight.org, doorway into light, LIGHT, doorwayintolight.org has a lot of things about what we're doing, and yeah.
Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean,
but that whole thing, that's you wanted to talk about if that, because that's how that letter was more about the homeless than about affordable housing. But
but it was about the homeless and the
affordable housing may be the biggest issue right now on Maui. Period.
I think. Period. Yeah, and crime that is out of control out there, victimizing really a lot of the homeless. I sadly know people very close to me that are homeless and that can't find their way.
And they're not poor people, and they're not drugged out people, right? They're just people like us that can no longer afford to rent a home for 2 or 3 or 4 or more, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand. And it's
or can't even find one.
Well, look at all
have the money and can't even find one.
Isn't it? It's crazy. How long we've been talking about this? At least 30 years.
I always wondered about that, Jason. I didn't think the people in the government were any like, I never thought I was smarter than anybody that works in the government. And I thought, how come these people aren't doing this stuff? This is pretty plain common sense stuff.
It was at least 15 years ago, maybe more. I spoke to Vince Bagoyo. Vince Bagoyo served on council and has been involved in our community a long time. And his focus was, at that time, we're 8,000 living units short of what we need. That was 15 years ago. Now we're 8 zillion short, and the prices of, the prices of everything.
It's a joke when they say we're building affordable homes.
Yeah, $500,000
is affordable home.
Affordable home.
Hey, I wrote a letter to the Maui, I don't even think it was the Maui News, it might have been the Maui Sun, whatever it was, 30 or 40 years ago, saying, hey, this is a good time to plan for a bypass around Makawao and a bypass around Paia, and some strategic planning about what Kihei is going to turn into. And that was in the paper, and I thought, well, everybody can see what's coming. And meanwhile, here 40 years later, and Makawao traffic getting through the one intersection, and Paia is crazy. And
now
what
it's
is that
difficult to do a bypass. Now
doable, but it's money and and what it costs now to do any of that stuff.
I remember when they talk about the Kihei bypass and the side road. I forgot who it was.
Oh, from Kula.
$25 million a mile. What?
Remember when they wanted to build a highway down from Kula straight to Kihei?
Yeah. Right. I remember, these things come and go. And
we saw the last, we saw the last of a Maui that isn't here anymore. And that was, for me, it was in the 70s. I didn't know it at the time, but now in looking back, that was a Maui that was I saw the end of a Maui that's pretty much gone. Not that Maui isn't still absolutely amazing and precious and so beautiful and so untouched in so many ways. And the mana is still so strong, and the love is still so strong, and the aloha, but it's a different Maui now. And it has changed, as you've seen, a number of times. Like, the .com thing, and then the COVID thing, and then people could live and work anywhere.
And it's changed what it means to promote now. Social media has changed the whole...
Did you see in the news today, Jason, that the Surgeon General of the United States said
did.
there needs to be a warning label on all social media apps, just like cigarettes? I thought that's brilliant, and hopefully it's not too late. The amount of depression and boredom, and et cetera. How many teens are taking meds because they can't handle normal life?
It's
et
really
cetera,
shifted.
et cetera.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I hope there's not an ad there that says you can get rid of that label on your page. Click here. You've seen.
Don't make me cry now.
Well, you are, I don't know how to say it. I do know how to say it. You're a great guy. And, as I'm coming to think about the last numbers of years, there have been outspoken people over the years, but I've somehow gotten identified as media host, and people don't really see any other aspects of me. And so I think that's my main thinking, to pull out of here. So maybe, not that they'll forget that I do media host, but maybe they'll see me doing other things and realize that there's value here in some of the things I've been saying.
Join the improv group, right?
Yeah.
Perform at the do whatever your heart calls you to do. I meet people because people come to me and they say, I want to be a death midwife. I want to be a death doula. And a lot of these people, and lots of these people, they got on the road to success at a young age because the definition of success was finish school, get a great job, keep going up the ladder, have lots of money, and a lot of people got on that track. A lot of people are still on that track, but a lot of people we know got on that track, and then they realized somewhere down the road as they got older that that wasn't real success. And in fact, they had to cut off parts of themselves to fit the model of becoming that particular success. And those parts were like the artistic part, the creative part, the imaginative part, the musical part, the playful part, right, all of that. And then you and I meet people that are reclaiming those things and saying, well, now I'm coming back to recognizing that I want to do my art, for example. Like I hear people say that. And the same with the people that want to be death doulas are often coming out of something, okay, I'm really done with that. This is what I'm called to do now, not as some career thing, but as this service I can contribute and feel I could be good at it, So you're never too old, actually, to reclaim that stuff either. And so many of us had to reclaim stuff because of the conditioning and the programming in terms of what the American dream was going to look like. Bloody blah.
Yeah, it's the bloody blah part.
It's the bloody blah.
I sit here. When I speak to you, I feel like I'm speaking to I'm not a mirror, but someone who shares so many of the ideas and thoughts that I have. Where has the world, why haven't they picked up these things? What exactly do you feel is going on?
God, who knows? There's so much momentum in the broken story, and there's so many people invested in it. I mean, imagine how many people right now would stop working because they don't like their job if they didn't have mortgage payments and school payments and kids payments and medical payments. How many people would just stop tomorrow, right? A lot of them. Most everybody probably would, right? And so everybody's caught in that. Well, I don't believe in what I'm doing, but I can't stop doing it. I'm locked in, and we all are in a sense. And that's where the problem is. I learned something really fascinating. I was talking to people about carbon footprint because people told me they wanted to be cremated, and I said, that's a large carbon footprint. First of all, there's a lot of energy required to burn you, and two, there's gases and heavy metals that go up into the air. It's not the best way to go. I know it's the cheapest financially, but it's not environmentally if that's what you want your last footprint to be. Then, and that's what I said for years, then I find out that BP, the largest or the second largest oil and gas company in the world, their marketing department made up the notion that there was such a thing as carbon footprint. And if you think about that, that was one of the most brilliant things, if not the most brilliant things, the marketing department of BP could have come up with, was the idea of a carbon footprint, which is why the whole thing, the whole spotlight got put on us, and we feel guilty when we throw away a toothbrush or use too much water or whatever it is that, and we're all carbon footprint conscious, and you can donate to a carbon offset. And actually, the focus and spotlight really is on BP and all of those blahs, where the real problem is that makes the whole system be the way it is, where we're forced into throwing away a toothbrush or whatever it is, right? So that spotlight got turned on us so we could feel guilty that we're not recycling enough, when in fact the spotlight needs to be directly on BP and the companies that are killing the world, and that so many of us are crying about. And we're talking about what our children and grandchildren and their children and all the rest of creation are going to have to live with, as maybe it gets worse before if it gets better. BP, right? I mean, so that itself shifted it for me. Like, I'm not going to make such a big deal about carbon footprint. I'm not going to feel guilty for getting on an airplane, because that's not where the focus needs to be. But of course, that's been the powers that be always want to put it on us and have us fight with each other. Of course, right? That's a whole other conversation.
Oh yeah, well, but it's back into the same loop. And to me, the thing that about all that you're saying is, after a while, all these conversations revolve around just a different kind of pattern that our world needs to be growing into, an awareness of oneness that is surely not coming out this election season.
Well, as long as I've been voting, and I've been voting, I mean, I'm in my 70s, as long as I've been voting, the economy always wins out over the environment or the culture or the people. And that's never not been the case. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, economy wins, and here we are again. I wonder where we're going to go this.
Oh, but then, okay, so then what's the story in terms of... we keep hoping it's going to get better, but at the same time we're grieving that maybe it's not going to get better. And so we swing between, and this is what dying people often do, and their caregivers often do, is they swing between hope and hopeless. And there's a sense of, well, of course, I can go on and on about this. Basically, we think we're flawed, and we sinned, and now we're going to die, and now we screwed up the whole thing. And and of course, in the West, there's something wrong with us. We're not good enough, and of course, it's all nonsense. It's all crap. But it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that we're not good enough. We're going to ruin the whole thing. And sure enough, that's what it looks like is happening. We're not only ruining it for future humans, but we're ruining it for future everything. And the earth will survive us, and plants will come back, and life will go on. But maybe it's close to being real that right now we're witnessing some of the last generations of humans. And can we not turn away from that into whatever we do? I mean, aren't we all turning away at some point? It's just too intense. So much is at stake right now. Everything's in the balance. And the national election is only one example of how everything, you can see it around the world. It's all, the wheels are coming off, it looks like. And not to mention what's happening with the climate. And that's why I have a grief ritual tomorrow night, because so many of us are feeling it, because so many of us are deep feeling people that don't want to turn away all the time into Facebook and sex and food and drugs and alcohol and you name it. You name it. The phone now is the all-purpose, forever, instant entertainment and dulling and soothing and drugging experience. There it is right in front of you. My friend made a joke when they were taking down all those Confederate statues, and she said, "Oh yeah, the next statue they're going to put up is going to look like this." I mean, that's what that's kind of what life in the West, and of course we're going to fuck it up because there's something wrong with us, and what's wrong with us humans anyway? Why can't we all live in peace? Well, maybe that's not the story that's going to happen on this planet. Maybe this is the school of how to at least tolerate and live with each other. You don't have to love everybody, but at least get along with everybody and share the resources and honor and respect the rest of the living life on this planet. Maybe that that, that's our vision of like peace on earth. We all get along. That may just not be the story here. I don't know. I don't know that part, but I know what I experienced. In 1970, before there was anything called Earth Day or even the environmental movement, I looked around, and that was right when I could have gotten drafted to go to Vietnam, and my dad had suddenly died, and I was starting to take some psychedelics, and I looked around, and I was like, oh my God, I got to get off this train. That's that train of success thing. I got to get off this train. And then I thought, if this keeps going on in another 30 or 40 or 50 years, it's going to look like it does today, Jason. Right?
Yeah.
Many of us saw that a long time ago. It's just like you said, how come the government doesn't get it? How come it's like, we're not all, we're all created equal in one sense, and also we're not all equal in another sense. And then, I think there ought to be two different countries, really. The red MAGA state can be their own country and have a king and only have white people and no gay people and all the women stay home and whatever that story is. I'm good with that. I think they should just have their own country, and everybody that was willing to live with black and yellow and gay and natives and all on and on and on could have their own country. And then some people want to live in the country where you can't ever have an abortion. I'm actually starting to teach a class called Choosing to End One's Life, which is on a completely similar but different subject, because it's a very hot topic for a lot of people, especially older people.
Yes.
In terms of dying doesn't look good to me. I don't want to be, et cetera, et cetera. I want to have a way out. And I teach about that very subject of how we got here and what that's really about in the bigger sense. But isn't that the biggest story that's playing out in America right now? A woman's right to end a life. And so they're going to fight about now whether a life starts as soon as the egg meets the sperm. Great. I think there's nothing but life and death going on every single moment, everywhere. Everything we eat comes from plants that ate dead stuff. There has to be death, and as you know, I can go on and on about that. In fact, that's the part when you said people think of you as the media host. And kind of that's who they see Jason Schwartz is, right? And so me, I have a lot of different hats, and people see me through. But the tent pole that I said, maybe you're holding up that tent pole for that piece of your voice, and the tent pole that I feel that I'm holding up is the tent pole that death is present in the community, right? Yeah. Simple as that. That because we want to ignore it, avoid it, be an aversion to it, deny it. Grandma kicked the bucket. If you read the obituaries in the Maui News, that nobody dies, everybody passes away or something, right? The dog died, the car died, oh my God, the phone died, a grandma passes away. So that's the tent pole. Heck, I have a store in Haiku called the Death Store. So, that's my tent pole. And, but I'm good with it. I'm good. I don't allow myself as best I can to not get caught in what the box other people might put me in. It's funny, in my funeral home, I have a sign that says, think inside the box.
I didn't see that sign. Think inside the box. Do you have handles inside to be able to get out? No.
I'm not going to talk about that now on the radio. No. Yeah, there's handles to get out. Yeah.
Well, I can't help but just, like I said, I could give the microphone to you, and I'm happy to be sitting here and listening to you espouse. In fact, like I say, people have said to me, you cut people off sometime, you putting out your thing. I like when I listen to you because I hear things coming out that make sense and are progressive and gives me a chance to rest. It's like when I see someone doing something good, I'm very happy about that because it means I don't have to do it all. I wish more people would join us on this homelessness thing and house, whatever.
I sing praises to what Lisa Darcy's been doing. Amazing. Yeah. Absolutely.
I know. Lisa Darcy's been on this show. She's got another new nonprofit going on. She's been a real champion all these years, I know.
Let's go back a minute. Will you tell me what we were just talking about before that?
what we were talking about before. We talking about homeless?
Oh, never mind.
Well, we're
Don't matter now.
well. It all matters.
If it's important, it'll come back.
Right, yeah, you say it's live. It comes, it goes. But I am just, I want to say, I'm tired. I'm just tired of this at the moment.
I hear that.
Talk.
I hear that.
And talk.
I hear that.
Doesn't seem to get the legs under it, and the world is going like this.
Yeah. Well, that's disappointment, loneliness. Sometimes those are all actually aspects of grieving. We see what it could be, and it's not rocket science. We see what it could be, and we do. And there's a lot of visionaries on Maui, an overabundance maybe of visionaries who do see it. And what do you do about it? Joanna Macy, who's a brilliant philosopher, what does she study? System analyst, she said we're in the middle of the Great Turning. Actually, she said that years ago. We're in the Great Turning, and of course, many of us see that it's not working. The world's not working well. And she said there's three responses. Maybe you know this. She identifies three responses in recognizing the Great Turning is happening. One is you get out in front of those trains that are driving radioactive material to take to another state, or you occupy Wall Street, or you protest what's happening in Palestine. The people that are out there right now trying to change the story by actively getting in front of what's broken and demanding it change, right? So that's one response. The other response is what is the healing story? And that's alternative education, and that's organic, sustainable, regenerative farming, and that's everybody being welcome at the table to have their voice. And it's all of it. It's all of the ways people are becoming more conscious about how to live on the land, and how to be, and how important community is, and all of that. So that's the second response. The people that are out there making those schools and building those communities and growing those beautiful food, right? The farmers market is a great,
Yeah.
And then, so that's the second one. You be part of the new story that's going to replace the broken one. And the third response is the transformation of human consciousness itself. In other words, how do we change what people think? And because what people think affects what they do every day and the choices that they make. It doesn't matter if we're all driving around in solar-powered cars, if we're still angry and pissing off and getting, fighting with each other. And in fact, who'd have thought 50 years ago that 50 years later people would still be killing each other with guns and bombs and missiles and drones? And unheard of, right? I didn't see any of that until I saw some kid's video game or something, and probably that's where you learn it. So then killing becomes completely not personal. You press a button, it's like a video game. And no, that's craziness. But now I don't know where I went with that whole thing.
No, you went exactly where you wanted to.
Oh, so what do you do? The third response, human consciousness, which is like helping people come out of what I call the cultural hypnotic sleepwalk. That in fact the culture prefers you stay in and keep buying stuff, and don't pay attention to what's happening behind the curtains, right? And so the transformation of consciousness is, how do you shake people out of that? We all fall into that kind of default mode. All right, it's the cultural mode. We all fall into it at times. So how do we shake people out of that? So they then change their lives. And so amazingly, and of course I've been a minister for 40 something years. And what is ministry but to help people? And what's the supreme level of helping people? Will be after they're fed and they have a place to get out of the rain. Then it's about spiritual connection to God. There's two wounds in what I see. Is there's two basic wounds. The primary wound that we all have is our disconnect from God, or the holy. I'll call it the holy because it's not somebody up in the sky. I call it the great mystery, or sometimes I just call it love. But our disconnect from that, first of all, that's lonely right there. That's separation. That's abandonment. That's all kinds of things. And then the secondary wound is I'm not good enough. Right. And variations of that is nobody listens to me, nobody pays attention to me. And sometimes the loudest person in the room has the wound of nobody listened to me when that person was a kid. And Dalai Lama commented on it when he came here. How can these people, basically he said, how can these people be so rich and have so little self-esteem? right? Because that whether you believe it or not that we sinned, whether you believe that origin story, how many people do I hear say when they got sick they feel like they did something wrong or they got punished, or when they're dying they're being punished. Even if you don't believe that origin story, it's amazing how many people have that very thought when they get sick or are dying, right? And of course, I see so many of them because this is what I do in the world. I see it and I'm around it. How many people want to be forgiven? And they want God to forgive them. And these are not murderers. These are people just like us, but something about them that is so much. See, that's what I think is no judgment day, but there is self-judgment day. And it may go on for more than a day because of how hard we are on ourselves. And, on and on and on. I covered a lot of ground there.
You did. Now, speaking of that,
that's why I like teaching about death. That's what it comes back to, Jason. And by the way, whoever says that you cut off people, blah, 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 I've been cutting you off a lot of the show, and we're just in a flow here. And
I'm enjoying.
Okay, good. But that's part of when I said the ministry led me into work with dying people, but also the recognition that having death awareness shakes us into a more full, alive life. It's like when you get a phone call that your best friend just died, something happens to you, and it happens to just about everybody. It cuts out the crap. It brings you right into the moment and the rawness and the fragility and the preciousness of the moment. Well, we know that's a spiritual experience, shaking us out of the, I got time. Yeah. You're watching the clock now.
No, we got
I'm good either.
Minutes. We're good. I'm just,
okay.
Like, this, as you're talking, I'm thinking I should probably open the door for you to talk about your new church. Is it called church?
Yeah. It's the first congregation of Doorway into Light, and Doorway into Light's currently our educational and charitable nonprofit. And in doing the work that we're doing, it became clear to us that it's ministry. And all of us are ministers now. There's 5 of us who run the whole nonprofit and the funeral home. We're all ordained ministers, and we recognize it as ministry. And we've been certifying people who go through our course to be certified death doulas. And then we found out that some people wanted to be ordained, also recognizing that work is ministry. And honestly, to me, death doula is ministry work, pure and simple. It doesn't mean you can't ask for a payment or some kind of exchange, but it's at the core, it's ministry, right? And then we thought, well, let's become an official ministry. And that's what we're doing here anyway. In fact, every Saturday we have an open house, and it is kind of ministry, but we don't talk about anything. Anything people. I don't preach about God or anything like that. So then we thought, let's become a real thing. And then it became clear that at least for now, it's the first congregation of Doorway into Light. And we met actually the very first meeting, which was 2 months ago. We meet every Saturday at 9:00 at the Baldwin Beach Pavilion now. But the very first one we did 2 months ago, we did inside the funeral home, in the room where we wash bodies and prepare bodies for burial or ocean burial. And it's the same room that families have come in and washed and dressed their loved ones. And that's where we started the church, the very first, and we packed it. It was full of people crowded in there, and that was the beginning of the first congregation of Doorway into Light. And then we started going, well, let's try doing it at the beach, so it's like beach church. And I think that's where its home is for now. So every Saturday on Maui at 9:00 at the Pavilion at Baldwin Beach Park.
Ah.
Thanks for asking about that.
I thought that was very powerful and important.
It's beautiful. It's a small group of us, and again, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter how many people come. It's the same thing, right? It doesn't matter who's listening. God, it's like, I know you're inspired by something that kind of has moved you to do all the things and offer the things and give so much of your life in terms of time of your life towards something that was bigger than you. The rest is the rest. A lot of people can't get beyond the you being me and my kids and wife and cars.
That's a lot.
And so I have tremendous respect for how much, because what do we have? People say, "How you doing, Bodhi?" I say, "I'm having the time of my life," and they look at me like, "That's cool." And then I look at them and I say, Everybody's having the time of their life. That's exactly what we're having. That is what we have. And so then I have tremendous respect for someone who has given so much of the time of their life to putting out something that was about goodness and beauty and healing and reconciliation and truth to power. And so, yeah, you know.
You've been reading my mail. I know. Thank you.
So
I'll take it personally.
And I want to come back just to reaffirm here.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much your effect has on any and everybody, whether you get any feedback about it or not. And of course, that's about faith. And you know what? And in that sense, faith is about confidence that what you're doing is important, and you believe in it. In fact, not only you believe in it, you have passion around it, and that's what you're supposed to do. And now you're supposed to take a break from it and take some distance from it, and that's essential. That's essential. Otherwise, you get tired and you burn out.
Well, yeah.
And that's what's happening. A lot of people are getting tired and burning out.
But it's time for a transition to another.
Right on.
Aspect.
Join the circus? Run off with the circus?
Yeah, I think it might be.
I can picture that. For you, I can picture that.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the clock so I know where we're at. What kind of things I'd say, what do you want to talk about? I'm giving you an open mic.
I have a beautiful wife. We're almost married 40 years this year. She still likes me. We have a really good time together. We have a beautiful organic homestead in Haiku. Some of our kids and grandkids live really close by. We have a garden that I can still see under the weeds. I hear the sound of running streams. I wake up to birds and streams, and I love my life here on Maui. Now I've been here almost 50 years now. Wow. I love being here, and I'm here for the rest of my life. I love the work that I'm doing, that I give so much of the time of my life to. In terms of if I can help one family, I'm good. And we're helping way more than one family, but it's ministry. So we're not dependent on it. None of us are dependent on it. That we have to make money. It has to be our main income, and that's fortunate because there's no pressure to sell anything, and we're either hospice volunteers or we're ministers, or there's a CNA works with hospice on our team. We have a nurse on our team, counselors, grief support people. We're just a big community resource that will help you when you find out you're dying, when you find out someone else is dying, when you care for someone who just died. A lot of people don't even know we're the third or fourth funeral home here on Maui that have been here being a funeral home since 2012. And we've helped a lot of people now. And I'm so grateful, really.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I'm happy to say I've seen friends come through your doors.
You bet. That's hard, but yes, starting to pick up friends from wherever, the home or the morgue or yeah. Very, very big, very big. Yeah, and of course, when your friends start dying, your own mortality gets more real to you, to many of us who know that we've lived most of our life. We're on the back end, right? We've already lived most of our life.
Almost a half.
Right. And maybe not. Maybe, I think I've lived way more than half my life, and
we're about that same age. My father died, and I was at that spot of, Vietnam or not times.
That was a big time. That was a big time, right? A lot changed for a lot of people, right, in that whole,
There was that thought that the world is going to change by what we're doing, and that we're going to lead that charge. And so many of our, people of our age had a big choice. We had the grand ideas, and then they get trapped into this thing that just is bigger.
Mortgages and bills and having to buy food. Did you ever read the book Ishmael?
No.
Ishmael, I forget what. Look it up. Ishmael. I can't remember the guy who wrote it. Oh, Daniel Quinn. Daniel Quinn. He won the first time that Ted Turner, who started CNN, he offered $1 million for the best environmental book that year, and Ishmael won the book. Won the book, and he says one of the big problems, maybe one of the main problems, started when they locked up the food. And I mean, if you think about it, that's it. I mean, there's others. When all of a sudden God wasn't here anymore, God was up in the sky somewhere. That you could call that another one of those moments. But when they locked up the food, and the food wasn't free like it had always been forever, everything had to change. And so, a lot, of course, everybody in one way or another is on the treadmill of eating, let's say. And supposedly, I don't know, supposedly guys like Steve Jobs and those guys, they were there with us taking drugs and saw what could be. And I hear some of the people that make sitcoms and TV shows, and sometimes you see it in the movies, right? Oh, somebody was consciousness. I get what the message was there, right? And so it's out there, but of course, what they say the swing is it keeps getting progressive and then it goes back regressive, but the basic thing is it's always progressing. I don't know. It's not looking good, when you think about that black people in this country are still, it's the same as it was. It's still plantation days, and where they don't feel safe on the streets anywhere. In fact, most people, I mean, when you grew up, my mom would just say, go out and play and come back for dinner, and that was it. And now, of course, nobody feels safe. Right? No, and that's not, a sign of real richness and wealth is that people feel safe and cared for and cared about and don't feel alone. And that's real richness, and we have way less security, way less than we did. When you and me were kids.
Yeah. The world is really, and when I say it's different, I wonder what people were saying 100 years ago. Were they saying that same story? Probably.
Yeah, my parents didn't like my rock and roll. That was a sign of we were doomed back then. But there was never so many people on the planet taxing the resources of the planet to the degree that it is now. There were never so many starving, hungry people.
And I remember when I started this Maui Arts and Music Association, a guy with me, John Scarchino, from the music business, we had ideas of rekindling a "We Are the World" sentiment and doing it here. And then he found out about all these things going on in the world and was trying to share them. And after desperation of trying to share them, he left and went to Montana to be with his mother and get over this whole life that it is and what it is. So
I don't know. That reminds me of a different version of that story. That apparently this guy who was putting out a very well-read publication about the things we're talking about consciousness, and I think it was particularly in the political environmental sphere. Did you see that movie that was just out for a few days about John Robbins?
Yeah, that he didn't want to be Mr. Baskin and Robbins.
But did you watch the whole movie through?
I haven't seen it.
It's brilliant, and a lot of it is about his relationship with his dad and the time in the world of what was happening.
Oh.
But yeah.
Yeah, that was a gigantic move. Good move. But again, he's making a difference in my life, making a difference in your life.
You know what? Every choice you make makes a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Every dollar you spend empowers or disempowers a company. If we want some company to stop making hula hoops, if everybody just needs to stop buying hula hoops, and that business will go out of business.
Don't mind me looking up here. I'm trying to see if we have 3 minutes and 16 seconds or 8 minutes. I think it's 3 minutes.
Looks like 3 to me.
Yeah.
It's just like coming back to the difference you make in the supermarket when you smile at that person and you see another human, and they see recognized as not as a human, right? And they pass it on, and that, I mean, to me, it's all ground floor stuff. It's like this circle of concern. Right, we have a lot of things in the circle of concern that we feel a bit helpless about, or it's too big. A lot of especially young people that just go, "What's the point? It's too big." And we can't do much about it. But those things we can usually pray about, we can grieve about, and I think that's important to grieve about it. And we can send money to organizations that want to change that story we can't touch. Right. Excuse me. And then there's the circle of influence. Right, I just described a circle of concern. So then there's the circle of influence. And these are the things you have an effect on every single day of your life. Every thought you have, every interaction you have with another person, every dollar you spend. We have a way to affect what's in our worlds. And I tend to spend most of my time in that world. Feet on the ground. My guiding question, in fact, it's become the guiding question of our organization, is what does love look like now? And I think that's the most powerful thing you can bring to a dying person or a healthy person or anybody. It's like, I'm sitting in front of you. The truth is, I don't know if I'll ever see you again. And when I recognize that that's true, then of course I want to bring my whole self to it. And what do I want to bring in my whole self to this exchange? Is love, really, which is the most powerful exchange there is and the most healing thing there is. And the rest is the rest, right? The rest of the details of how we make it in a world where sometimes it hurts and sometimes it feels great.
The only reason I'm stopping is because I want to be ending the show.
I get it.
But
I get it.
I've appreciated you've given me a chance to rest and hear a reflection. Bodhi, you're a wonderful guy. I hope that our community will check out doorwayintolight.org and see the beauty and join in this quest of oneness. You're nothing less than a wonderful guy. I appreciate you so much.
You should ask my kids, though, if you... Thank you. First of all, thank you. I received that, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope all of you will join us again. MauiNeutralZone.com. You can see this show and many, many, many other shows. It's been a pleasure. Bodhi, thank you for being here. Everyone, take care. We will see you next week. Aloha. Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.